can kick off with a.
Can you kick off?
If you like, Anisha, was that our game plan? Good on you.
Oh, cool. I have no idea. I just got IMT up here, and that's all I've got.
Yep. Good afternoon, everybody. And we've got Felicity and Erina will be the two. In fact, she was here. She's disappeared off my screen again. Here to talk us through a Help for You initiative that I came across sort of by accident, really, I suppose, initially through a personal friendship with Felicity. We've got, we did have kids at the same school, but then I also was lucky enough to see them receive quite some recognition and appreciation as one of the nominees for the Volunteer Service Awards in the Waikato here in this current year. So it's really a new initiative that's actually getting some recognition for the good work it's doing, even though it's very new. They're already posting a lot of runs on the board. So interestingly enough, we've now got this initiative, which I'll talk about shortly, rolled out to the south of us, both in Hamilton City and also in further south in Tokoroa, for example. And also, I understand a pilot underway to the north of us in South Auckland. So we've got this big district in the middle, which is us. And I believe, Felicity, you were telling me that you actually do have inquiries coming out of our district, but you're not able to attend to them because we're not yet part of it. So it's been connected with staff now who are still working through what is it? How do we want to do it? How do we want to get involved with it all? And this today is an opportunity for us as elected members to get up to speed with where that's at, and also an opportunity for us to give input and perhaps some guidance as to where we might see this going in the future. So I'll let Felicity and Erina introduce themselves. They've already been given an introduction to us, so we don't need to go through that side of it. They know who we are on this side of the call. But Felicity and Erina, I'll hand over to you at this point, and you can introduce yourselves perhaps, and then talk about this initiative.
Great. Kia ora, Axel, and kia ora koutou, everyone. Thank you so much for giving us your time, an hour of your time, and what I know is crazy times for all of us, both personal and work-wise. So we know slotting something new like this in can put pressure on, and Erina and I are hugely appreciative of that. I'll just give a little bit introduction about myself. I'll let Erina give a little introduction about herself, and then she'll hand back to me, and then I'll hand back to her. So it'll be a little bit of ping pong, but we'll just roll with it. But a little bit about me. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge Councillor Beck, and thanks, Axel, for being so open to a discussion. So when I reached out to Axel, he was really open to hearing about it. He asked some really good questions. He was like, well, I've got some questions for you, Felicity, like, why isn't it here? That would be my first question. Why is this the first time we're hearing about it? So, he made me sweat a little bit, and that was all good. They were really great questions, and we encourage those questions from you today. So we know we've got an hour, but we don't want to take all that time. We want to get through this as quickly as we can so you can have lots of questions with us. So a little bit about me, then I'll get Erina to introduce herself, and then I'll give you some history and background on here to help you, and then Erina is going to give you a demonstration of what a user or a person in your community would see, experience and feel when they use the tool. So my background, I'll show my age, but over 30 years working in social marketing. I have in the last 20 years been contracting with my own business, working on both national, regional and local projects and some global work. I have a really strong history in the not-for-profit space, and particularly in health and wellbeing. And due to that, about 3 years ago, the WISE Group approached me to do some work for them in some of their innovative project space. And that's what brings me to here to help you. That's how I came to being part of that. And we'll explain that in the future. But I definitely work in innovation space. I'm also involved in a startup with Callaghan Innovation. And what you're going to hear today is really born out of innovation. It's born out of the ability for not-for-profits to move quickly in a time of need and to be brave and bold. And that's what we did, and that's what you'll see. So that's me. That's a little bit about, very little bit about me. Oh, and if I roll my R's, excuse me, I actually derive from the deep south. So, but I escaped too bloody cold down there for me. And I love the tropics up here. So I'm glad to be part of it. So thank you very much. Thanks for having me today, Erina.
Cool. Tēnei te mihi kia koutou, ko waio. So my name is Erina Savoon and I'm Operations Manager at the WISE Group. So I lead 3 of the innovation projects at the group, and one of those being here to help you. So in terms of my whakapapa, my father's from Tūwhareto, my mama is from Ngāpuhi, and my papa Atawhai, which is my stepfather, is from Ngāti Maniapoto. Engari, I live currently in Hamilton with my gorgeous 6'5" Tongan husband and my beautiful 2-year-old daughter. Absolute pleasure to be here with you today, and thank you for your time, as I'm sure everybody has a lot on their plate. So really appreciate your time. Kia ora.
So before we get into some of the background, I'd also like to acknowledge your staff. The 3 staff that we have worked with have just made every interaction that we've had so far an absolute pleasure. They've been an absolute pleasure to work with. That's Kelly, Angela and Anisha. So Erina and I thank them personally, but also want to acknowledge them for, there's been lots of steps along the way. We've had quite a lot of discussions to get before we've got in front of you, and they're a real asset to your council. So thank you to them, and thank you to them for pulling this together today. So background on Here to Help You. What was its genesis? How did all this begin? And it actually began on the 23rd of March last year. And I'm sure we all know where we were on that fateful sort of date. Was the first time we all heard this magical word, which is becoming quite a fatigued word, lockdown. And back on the 23rd of March, Erina and I were sitting at the WISE Group. The Prime Minister announced that our country was going to go into level 4 lockdown. Everyone looked at each other and went, what the heck does this mean? Our CEs, we have joint CEs at the WISE Group. So a little bit about the WISE Group, a little bit of a diversion, but the WISE Group is one of New Zealand's largest health and wellbeing service providers. We now have 30 years success in developing and delivering programs across health and wellbeing in New Zealand. So our CEs looked at Erina and I and said, right, everybody's got to go. We've got to go into this lockdown. And they said to us, your brief from us is to find out what the community needs and deliver it. So whatever it is, you deliver it. And Erina and I looked at each other and went, okay, that's, no big ask. We've got this. We can do it. So the first step to Here to Help You was listening. We immediately jumped on and organised Zooms with community providers across Kirikiriroa. It was really important to us to actually listen in first and not jump in there with our own blind spots thinking that we knew it all in terms of health and wellbeing. And what we started to hear in that lockdown will be things that you have now heard. To us, they were new at the time, but they'll be things that you're really, really comfortable with now. And they were things like, we don't know what to expect. There are going to be very big gaps. There are going to be a lot of vulnerable people. There are going to be that will have more demand and more need on current services. So that will be people that have used support and wellbeing and social support services in the past. But there will also be a really big new wave of people. They use the term the newly vulnerable. We don't like to use the term vulnerable, but it's what it is being called. So there will be a lot of new people who have never actually reached out to social support before. And what does it mean for them? But also, and there was another angle, there was another side that we were getting loud and clear, and that was there are gaps, going to be gaps in service provision that we've never ever had before. And how do we serve those gaps? And also there were going to be a lot of community providers that rely on volunteer workforce. And there's going to be so many unknowns about that. And also so many of those volunteers who can no longer do the mahi. They just can't work under COVID conditions. So we came to know about all those gaps. We listened to them, we understood them. And when we looked at each other and went, what is it that's needed? And the simple stripped back question for the end user, for the people, the whānau living in the community was, Imagine if getting help in a time of high need was as easy as ordering a pizza. And that's really what we asked ourselves. What we were finding was the system people were having to navigate was really complex. Often people were having to tell their story multiple, up to 8 to 10 times to different providers to finally get the support that they needed. Imagine if they only had to tell that story once. Imagine the difference that would make to people's lives and well-being. But also we were hearing that people were under a lot of stress to try and reach out and get help. There were new barriers. There was a lot of whakama around the whole system. So imagine if the system could be so different. If you could literally dial in, fill out a couple of fields and pretty much say, I'm just in need of a bit of support right now. You might not even know the support that you need. And we've certainly found that, and Erina will explain some of that, that often people are navigating in thinking they just are so desperate for food provision. They desperately need kai for their whānau. But when our fantastic connector team do the work that they do that you'll see that sits in our system, we're able to identify and triage a whole lot of wraparound support. So that's often really the case too, is that people don't know what they don't know. They don't know the range of wellbeing services and support that we can actually link them into. So we took a design thinking approach. We listened. We designed up a transformational tool, which is here to help you. And we literally built that in 3 weeks' time. So it took us 3 weeks from start to finish to launch. We decided sleep was overrated. We decided that we just needed to get it done. And we launched it. We knew it wasn't perfect, but we kind of took an MVP startup approach. And that's what is quite interesting about, when you're working in this not-for-profit space, but you're also taking a little bit of the innovation startup space, that we were really comfortable, and our CEs backed us and said, just get on with it. It won't be perfect, but if you launch an MVP and then we take another year to build an exemplar model. So we believe what you are seeing today is exemplar. We have now spent a year working on the tech, working on the system, working on the whole ecosystem, which involves hundreds of providers that sit in behind the tool and stakeholders, people like yourselves, councils. How does all that system operate and work together so that that person can literally get help as easy as ordering a pizza? So the tool's been built. It's been in operation now since April last year. It's been hugely successful. I just looked today on the portal. We've now supported 16,600 people in whānau. And that's through really tough times when we haven't been able to get out there with lots of promotion. So we're pretty proud of that number. In fact, we're really proud of that number. We've also now got interest. So we launched in Kirikiriroa. At the end of last year, we rolled out because of interest into South Waikato. We have also now, we're now speaking with a number of other areas in the Waikato region. We have interest now from Waipa. We're doing a demonstration to the community on Wednesday, Waitomo and Aotearoa. We also have interest coming in next week that we're doing demonstrations with Matamata Piako, Thames, Hauraki, and the 3 kind of areas over that way. In addition to regional growth, we've got a lot of areas outside of our region that are noticing here to help you now and starting to ask us questions and want to see it. So it's currently operating in a really pilot way in South Auckland at the moment. But we've got interest from Whangarei, Hawke's Bay, Rotorua. It's just starting to just roll and come in. So that's the background. It's going to be far more exciting seeing the tool than hearing from me. But when you start to see the tool, what I'd really love you to think of is that Here to Help You is a tool that serves a spectrum of need. And when I say that spectrum of need, I don't mean that in terms of individuals. Yes, it serves thousands of individuals, but it serves communities over a range of times. So it works really well in what we call business as usual times. So times that we knew before lockdown or in between our lockdowns, where we just kind of all went back to thinking, yep, this is good. Ticks along beautifully in those times. But where it really comes into its own is what we've found lately is where communities are facing a resurgence. So communities are facing either resurgence of COVID or new crises. And when they've got Here to Help You bedded in, there's just a calm. There's a sense of calm. They've got it. There's a system in place. It's a joined up system of working and way of working, and they feel really confident in that. It also works really well, obviously, when we get to crisis time. It's where it's really ticking and running at high capacity. But also then when we come out of those times and into recovery, the beauty of the system is that it identifies gaps. So where there might be gaps, when we come into those recovery times, the ecosystem support that wraps around Here to Help You means we can identify where there are gaps now, and we can make sure that we're bringing in those help categories and those services to fill those gaps. So just think of it working across all those times in that spectrum of need. I'm going to be quiet now, hand it over to our beautiful Erina, and let Erina give you a demonstration. Kia ora, thank you for your time.
Tēnā koe, Felicity. Absolutely fabulous as always. So kia ora everybody. I'm going to be taking you through the demo site today. So this will not be live data. You won't see people's names, but it's the demo site to show you the process. But before we get into that, I thought it would be really important to kind of show you a high level of how it works in terms of the whānau journey. So essentially there's 3 key steps. A whānau submit a help request. Then one of our trained connectors dive a bit deeper and get some more information that's required. And then from there, we send an assignment through to providers who are signed up in the back end. So those are essentially the 3 key steps. So when a whānau is submitting a help request, there's multiple ways in which they can do that. They can either do it online via the Here to Help You website, and this can be done 24/7. They could also use the free phone. So we've got a free 0800 number where they can also ask for support. And often what we're finding is some of support workers or other people working with that whānau who don't necessarily provide the services they need are also helping refer on their behalf, or friends and whānau as well. So essentially the whānau submit a help request, then our trained connectors dive a bit deeper. So we've made it really easy. Essentially whānau are saying, this is who I am and this is what I need. And then connectors can dive a bit deeper. What we tend to find is, especially in a crisis situation, is people come in with their immediate needs saying, I need kai, and then actually you start to go and then there's some mental health, and then there's flow on and other support required. So the connector can really dive a bit deep. In terms of our connector team, we've got over 30 years experience in mental health and wellbeing. Some of our connectors being social workers, some in community, representing the LGBTQIA plus community, Pacifica, Māori, and so on and so forth. So they really dive a bit deeper and hear the needs of the whānau. And then from that point, what makes us unique and different is that providers are actually signed up in the back end of the site. So often in traditional models would say, hey, you can go over here, but we've got no idea whether that was accepted or not, whether that provider had capacity, or whether that was even completed. So what makes Here to Help You unique and different is that providers can accept or decline help assignments right there, and the connector, if it is declined, the connector can essentially reassign to another provider that can do it. That is one of the real pros of Here to Help You as well, is that providers have said when we're absolutely under massive, massive demand, we can say actually we can't do it. We don't have to feel uncomfortable about that because we know there's other people in the system who should be able to hold it. So there's a sense of working together there. So that's essentially how it works as a whole. And then once the provider has completed the report, they simply say, yep, this has been done, and then the link is followed from there. So this is the main site that you would see. You can see our main areas that are here. When a whānau look to go for support, if they're in Hamilton, for example, you'll see that we also do all help requests within managed isolation. So we navigate requests through to MSD already. We've got really strong relationships there, MOE and other agencies in managed isolation. But essentially a whānau all they simply have to do is click their particular area, click on the things that they're needing support with, and they can choose to leave a message or not. From there, they're going to submit their first and last name and a contact phone number. They'll also need to let us know how they heard about us. And what's really important here is they must consent for their information to be sent to a provider that can support them. If they don't do this process, the process of the help request can't be submitted. And that's just in terms of a consent process. So that's as simple as it is to submit a help request. What you're seeing here is essentially what the connector function would see. So up the top here, we have all the cases we haven't dealt with, and down the bottom, all the cases that we have. So we can see we've got Erina Savoon here, who's my beautiful daughter. And we're not going to see all the information right up front. And this is just to preserve some of the privacy of whānau so that everybody can't see everything. So as a connector, I can decide to pick this case up and I'll get a bit more information about what this whānau is needing. So from here, I'd start the screening process. And then I can dive a bit deeper, call the whānau, dive a bit deeper into what they're needing. I'm going to be able to see any of the support services that this whānau is needing, and I can enter their street address. Fantastic. So as you can see here, our system's really smart. It connects by name, by phone number and address. So we've inputted the address here, and we can see any other cases that this whānau has put through before so that we can make sure there's a continuum of care there. From there, we can ask a plethora of questions looking at household members and things like that. We also, and this was added because of COVID, the ability to collect. So sometimes we have our kaumātua, or we have mama who have just had babies, single mama, and they don't necessarily have transport or the ability to access that support. So we can highlight that right there. From there, we have a multitude of questions that we can ask the whānau depending on the support that's required. We can also highlight down the bottom if it's an urgent case. So let's say food, for example, a whānau come through and they have only 1 day left of kai, and they've got, you know, which we see often, 7 whānau members in the house, and it might be Nana looking after those tamariki within the holidays. So we can make that urgent and visible to the provider. We can also say if it's a vulnerable client. Now, as Felicity has said, vulnerable is like my least favourite word in the world, but it was used to identify, say, kaumātua who couldn't leave the whare due to immune compromised and things like that. From there, we can leave any notes, but we can also leave some screening notes on the side. And the reason that we do that is that if a whānau are coming through for, say, mental health or any sensitive information, that shouldn't be shared with all providers. It should only be shared with the providers that need to know that information. So we ensure that only appropriate information is sent to providers when they need it. And so from here, I'm going to save that information, and we can move to start to look at who are the providers that can support this whānau. So I'm going to raise an assignment for Nola here. And what's the really fantastic thing about Here to Help You is it's going to list all of the providers based on closest proximity to the individual. So we can see over here, Savoon Takataka is giving us 40 assignments per week, and we haven't given them one yet this week, which means we've got 40 left. Once we've sent Savoon Takataka Trust 40 assignments, they're not going to show in the system anymore, and that for the rest of the week, and that just mitigates referral overload for providers. We can see here the service type. So this is also support services that Savoon Takataka Trust is providing. We can also see the distance to the client in meters and average drive time. Now, one of my favourite things about Here to Help You, especially coming from a Māori health background, is that we give the opportunity to whānau to really put the power in their hands in terms of the choice of provider that they want based on the availability. So we say do you want a Māori provider? Do you want a Pacific provider? Do you want a faith-based service? And then it means that they get access to the providers that can help them and can have capability, but capacity to do that, but it's doing it with their preference in mind if it's available. So in this particular case, we're going to send a referral through to Savoon Takataka Trust, and we can see that they also are providing mental health support, and then we can leave any notes. So it means that Nola only has to go to one place rather than two. And I can leave any notes here for this particular provider. From there, with a click of a button, the provider will now be sent an email to say you've got a new case coming through. So I'll just refresh this so we can see Nola coming through. And there she is there. So from here, we can see all the cases that we haven't picked up yet and all the cases that we're currently dealing with. So we're going to pick up Nola. And similar, we're not going to get all the information right up front as a provider until we decide to take that case on. So I'll have enough information here to be able to make a decision about whether I can pick it up or not. I can still say, actually, no, this is not for us, and it will ping back to the connector who can reassign to a provider that can support. But in this particular case, I'll decide to take it on. What's really important about this next step is it gives estimated completion time. So if Nola only has 1 day left of kai, but I can't get to her for 7 days, then I'm not the appropriate provider for that whānau, and the connector can pick it up and reassign to another person. So in this particular case, I'll get to it within 24 hours, and I can leave any notes. So from here, as a provider, I'm going to be able to contact Nola and have a corridor and start to put the interventions in place for her. At any time, I can still decline, which means it can be picked up and the connector can reassign if required. But in this particular case, I've provided that support to Nola. And then I can either say, yes, we've provided support and we're going to continue providing support to that whānau, or yes, we've just provided that support, and I can leave any notes here. And that's essentially the power of the system right there. One of the things that's really cool that we've actually put in place on the side is the ability to have notice boards. So our providers can actually put up and say, hey, I've got 50 chickens. Does anybody want some? Or, hey, we're going to be providing services over Christmas, and people can leave, like Facebook, any faces and comments that they would like to. What I also like about Here to Help You, which is fantastic, it puts the power into providers' hands about what they can and cannot do just to mitigate that referral overload. So at any time as a provider, I can say, we're actually experiencing high demand, we have capacity, or no, we can't take any on at the moment. As a provider, I can also amend the amount of cases that I can give per week at any time, and that's at the tip of my fingers. As we move on, one of the things that's fantastic about Here to Help You is our ability to understand ecosystems and systems as a whole. So the data that we have through our system is fantastic, and something I'm about to show you is through the Power BI dashboard. So this is looking at the help requests submitted in the Waikato region. Here, so fantastic. So you can see since lockdown, this is some of the numbers coming through. So we can see, obviously, in a crisis situation, huge proportion of food requests coming through, but we're also seeing things like mental health requests, housing, general support, employment, and other needs coming through as well. We see some safe social connection. And as you can start to see, there's really powerful trends, like with this particular, with the first Delta lockdown, we had 26 referrals, and then the next day 75 and upward, and almost the identical pattern happened with the second lockdown, which was really interesting. Yeah, so it's just a little bit about us.
Well done, Erina. Well done.
Kia ora.
Hey, look, so I don't look too ignorant about this. So I actually checked my notes here, and Councillor Beck had actually given me a heads up on it. I just hadn't looked at my notes, I'm sorry, but he gave me a heads up. How long ago, Axel? A month ago, more, I think, when you came and asked me if we could do this.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So a lot of water has gone under my bridge since then. So sorry, lady, for not realising what you were here for, other than me looking at my first screen and not looking at my notes. So have you got any more you want to add to that, Felicity?
Well, Felicity, maybe if I can guide you, if you could just talk about where councils, based on South Waikato, Hamilton, etc., and the other inquiries you got, how do councils position themselves with this particular initiative from your experience to date?
What we've sort of found, this whole initiative, when we built Here to Help You, we were really strong as a group, and also at the WISE group, that this works on a localities based model. So we don't go anywhere, we don't go out pitching, which is your question to me, Axel, some time ago when we first with this kind of thing for our district, and great valid question. But we don't go and pitch to people. We don't go and pitch to communities. And that might seem a little bit sort of counterintuitive if we want growth, but we go where communities want us and need us and where we start to see the need. So where the need arose for your district was we were getting help requests. So we've received a number of help requests, predominantly from Huntly, Ngaruawahia is where we're getting the most. But we had one lady who was really determined to get help, and she was a lovely lady from Gordonton. We explained that Here to Help You wasn't in your district, but she really wanted it, and we made sure that she got the help that she needed. So we kind of broke sort of the barriers, so to speak, the artificial barriers, and made sure that she received service and help, because she was, come hell or high water, going to go to council and say, why isn't it there? But we kept her comfortable, we kept her happy, and we calmed everything down and dealt with it. But it was at that point that I reached out to you, Axel, because that's the kind of thing that drives us to go to communities. And when we're getting that demand, or we're getting calls from like Auckland saying, hey, we've seen you, we've heard about you, we want to know more, that's then when we will mobilise and we will go and speak to those communities. Now, where council fits in that, why we've come to council first here and we've come to kōrero with you, is we found that over in Tauranga and Western Bay of Plenty, we got phenomenal support from the council over there, and it's worked really beautifully. So they actually had to roll out before their plan. Their plan date was the 20th of August, and this lockdown hit on the 17th of August, and they just went, we're just going to have to go, all guns blazing, let's get it out there. So council were really critical in that by actually being behind it. They supported it. They used it as a tool to support their community. And I'll let Erina pick up on that and some of the stats and what that meant for council. But that's the kind of role that council can play in supporting outreach. It gives council a tool that they can, feed out, and councillors to their communities. A wee example that I can give you for our Hamilton Mayor, I was actually meeting with her about another project around housing that the WISE Group's involved in a couple of months ago, and she was really excited to share. She went a little bit off track, and she was excited to share that whenever she goes out into the community, she has in her pocket a stash of Here to Help You cards, because she says invariably she will get someone from community coming up to her to talk to her about how is council meeting the need, the high need of social support and wellbeing support that's out there at the moment. And she said, my conversation opener is, well, have you seen this? And she can give over one of our cards and say that we are working in partnership. And that's a beautiful way that it works. We don't have to have council, but we definitely love it when it can work that way. So Erina, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, Rawe, and I think we hear about true partnership and engagement. And so, one of the things that we're driven by people and communities. And so our thing is that we want Here to Help You to be sustainable. We want to under promise and over deliver. So we had lots of pressure just to roll out into spaces really early. But I kind of think if my whānau were the ones on the other end who were getting the service delivery of Here to Help You, it should be top spec. And so, that's why we have tried to under promise and over deliver. And I guess we have been a bit more conservative because we wanted to get our two-factor authentication and our penetration testing, our accessibility audits, and do all of that due diligence before we start rolling into our other areas, because we want to make sure that we're doing it really well. One of the things that I think was really interesting that we learned from our engagement with Tauranga is that, when the first Delta outbreak was announced, Here to Help You received about 100 referrals from the Tauranga area, and their civil defence essentially had only heard 3 calls. So that's some of the advantage of really working in partnerships and spreading it across the system. One of the things that I also really like from a community base is that when the second Delta outbreak was announced, within 24 hours, we had 100 help request from community people. But the great part about that was that our community provider said, we're not feeling so much of that heat, because those help requests can be distributed across a system. So that's not one provider getting one help request that then overloads them for the week. So really like how we can spread that support across a system. I think I should just update you in terms of your own area, because that's what I would be thinking if I'm on that call. How many people have come through from our area? So in terms, we've had 1 from Raglan, we've had 6 from Ngaruawahia, 3 from Tamahere, 4 from Rahui Pōkeka Huntly, and one from Gordington, and one from Whatawhata. But this is obviously, we haven't promoted in these areas, that it's probably just come from the Kumara vine, and those requests have came in since the lockdown period.
Cool. I think, I think it's when Axel brought it to me, I just thought it was a marvelous idea, because I'm sitting here thinking about, all the way through since March last year, I've sort of any welfare stuff I've passed through to IMT. So Kirk and Angela, I think, have been, well, Angela especially, and the team have been working with those welfare, and there was certainly a lot last year. I don't know about this year as much, but we refer them through to the 0800 number to do that. So listening to what you ladies have told us this afternoon, probably the referral should be through to you, and doing it that way and taking a step out for us. Am I reading this right, Kurt? Yep, I am. Yeah. So how do we get involved? So what do you need us for? I can see us wanting to promote it and having to promote it. So how do we go about that for you, to benefit you?
Flick, do you want to do that one, or you want me to do it?
Yeah, you go first, Erina, and then I can talk about promotion and outreach.
Yeah, fabulous. So that's just a great kōrero that you just had, tēnei te mihi kia koe. So essentially how it works is, the next step we would do is essentially have a community hui. So here to help you only goes where people in community want it. We don't force ourselves on anyone. And so we'd run a community hui. We'd do that exact process that we would do with community providers. And then essentially they would say, yes, cool, we're into this, and we can get the waka moving. As obviously your particular region is quite vast and varied in terms of its space, we may look to break it up into certain spaces to ensure a really good locality space model. But we've partnered with Community Waikato, who also know some of those community providers in that area. So that would be the next step from here. And Flick, I can pass on to you in terms of the other kaupapa.
Sweet. Kia ora. So once we've done that, had that community hui, then we onboard. We've got a really quick, efficient process for onboarding providers. So we get those providers that want to be part of it. We don't force anyone. What we find is people just want to sign up. They want to be part of it because it just supports a joined up way of working. And those who are a little bit hesitant often will come in a little bit later. So we get them going. We launched in Kirikiriroa with just 16 providers. So I just want to share that number with you to reassure you that we don't need 100 from your district to get started. We'll get that system up and going. And as Erina said, we get the waka going really quickly. We get it going. But where we would love to work with you in response to that beautiful question is, working with council on the outreach and making sure that your community and all those pockets of your community know about it. That's where we would love to work in partnership. And we just have such a great sense of the work that we've already done, the meetings we've had with Kelly, Anisha and Angela, that, if we can get that blessing to go forward and work in partnership, that's the way that we feel that council can play a really significant role in supporting people that need to get access to Here to Help You.
And just to note on that as well, I think sometimes in smaller rural places, we can make assumptions that everybody knows everyone and everyone knows where to go. And I can guarantee you that's not actually the case. Like even being in Tokoro, where they know each other, we still get requests every day from people who don't know where to go. Lots of our whānau are moving around lots of different places. And so, I think sometimes we can make assumptions that our smaller communities, everyone knows everything, but it's not always the case.
Yeah, and as a mayor, I would say I don't always know where to go either. So, so that's why I generally refer it to some of the team, because I have no idea where to go. The other ones do. But look, what I've seen so far, and I'll open up to my councillors now, but I just think it's, when Axel first described it to me and asked if he could have some time to present it to the councillors, I thought, yeah, that sounds really, really good. So, and now I've seen it and see how you activate it and operate it. Yeah, I think it's something that we should be part of and promoting it. So, yeah, I think would be, unless anybody's got any differing views, and I'll ask the councillors how they feel about it at this stage. And yeah, I don't see any problem at all in trying to put together something so we can actually do that with you. Anyone want to comment anywhere? No, you've stunned them all. They're not usually short for words. Councillor Church.
Can we start in the North Waikato, please?
Well, you're in a different area to us.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, tongue in cheek. I do say that seriously. I know we've got issues, and I just talked to Councillor Thompson around Raglan, but because the North Waikato has basically been in lockdown 3 a lot, when the Waikato was in lockdown 2 all of last year and in 3, and it's it's still in that situation that it resonates with me completely. With we think even people in the rural areas are quite safe and that they've got capacity, but there's a lot of people struggling out there, but also find even people in Pocono with 2 incomes and they've gone down to 0 incomes, and to actually then they don't want to put their hand up because they feel ashamed and embarrassed, So, and also it's counties Manukau DHB, so there's that complication between the Waikato DHB and the counties Manukau in our area. So the funders sort of stop at the Auckland border and forget the North Waikato area. So there's a lot of reasons why, happy to support this in any way we can.
Beautiful.
Wonderful.
And I think if I can just pipe in, Felicity, the intention very much is for this to be district-wide. So it is the north as much as the east and the west and the south.
100%. We would love to work district-wide, absolutely. But and how we roll that out, as Erina said, we might run some pockets of demos. So, we might need to do 2 to 3 to do. We'll do whatever the community needs, and we can do that really quickly. We can start to plan, work with your team and start to plan some dates and set those community demos up and get going.
Cool. Councillor Maguire.
Yes, Felicity, I haven't had much to do with this, and over the period of time, the lockdowns and what have you. So there's been no demand in my ward at all for any help. I know Narrawaki, Huntley, and those places have certainly had high demand, but I haven't in the rural area, and no one's reached out to me saying that they need this or need that. So they must either look after themselves or good survivors or what. But the agricultural sector has gone fairly well and been generating money the whole way through. So it hasn't been a problem, but for a huge number of people. But but I haven't picked anyone up that really needs help. And the 2 Marais I've got within my ward, and there's one little one too. As well, another little one as well, as they haven't reached out to me, and not to the best of my knowledge, they haven't reached out to council. So they must be pretty self-sufficient. And so I don't know whether I could be any use to you in terms of supporting what you're doing.
It's all right, Rob. All I would say is, before I go to Councillor Thompson, I think the difference between now and the end of March last year are poles apart in relation to the pain that's going to happen. And I don't think we've actually seen the pain yet. And I would suggest the pain's going to roll out over the coming 6 months and probably start. It's already started, but it'll actually intensify going forward as we get closer to Christmas. The longer we stay in the situation we're in, the bigger the pain is going to be. So I think we've got a hell of a lot of pain, and I'd rather be in a position that we can actually be in there working at the coalface and actually working with the team to actually try and get things in place to actually help minimise that to the people within our communities. Councillor Thompson.
Kia ora, Felicity and Erina. Lovely to hear your kōrero. Thank you for that. Really appreciate it. So for my community here in Whaingaroa, how do we connect with you guys to connect some of the people, like the discussions that we've had, over the last couple of weeks and actually beforehand, because we've got a community response planning group. And we met actually the Saturday, the day before, we were notified of the COVID outbreak. So we were somewhat prepared, I guess, because we knew it was imminent that we would be in a situation like this. It's unavoidable. So my question really is, Erina, I heard you say about, the assumption, that we think we know where people know where to go. What I've heard from a lot in our community is, how do we connect with the more isolated rural community, particularly our Māori whānau, who can't access good connectivity through a portal like this. So that is the challenge. And even, just talking with Ngā Mental Health about our vaccination rates for Māori whānau here in my ward is that those who don't have a connection to a portal, I guess. So how are we able to collaborate that way? I mean, some of us are happy to be that space to go out to our whānau, but that's a real challenge in times like these. We make the assumption that people actually have access to social media or to online ability. And even for our Raglan Area School, there's a phenomenal amount of our whānau that don't even have connectivity. And we've got underground networks, I'm getting out there. So I'd be really, take this offline, because I'd really like to have a kōrero with you both about having something like that, what you're doing as a portal for our organisations here. So,
yeah. Kawe whaia, tēnei te mihi ki a koe. Yeah, totally agree with that. I've had 9 years of experience in Māori health, so understand the space. So 50% of all service users of Here to Help You are Māori. And so that's why we brought in the 0800 number, and that was really pushed by the rural space saying we want 0800 number. So that option is there as well. What we do know in terms of the connectivity issue is that it's broken into 3 components. So one is the device, one is the connectivity, and then the other one is the understanding of how to use that. So I guess the knowledge of the tech and how to use it. So one of the things we're also looking at is going data free. So we want to hustle that to start to look at that space. We've also got relationships with Te Wānanga o Aotearoa who are doing connectivity spaces. So there's multiple ways in which we could look at it. And I think, even when we start to look at how are people hearing of Here to Help You, it's very strong in the kumara vine. So it's, oh, hey, I heard my auntie or my cousin or something, and they're usually referring on behalf of, or sometimes when we have support agencies, say like Ngāmiro or other spaces, where they're not necessarily food provision, they're doing that at ad hoc or in different ways, so they can plug in for that particular whānau. So that, but happy to have a kōrero offline, Whaia.
Yeah, that's a really great question about, how do we get that outreach? And there is no fast silver bullet. It's actually a kitty of solutions and tactics. So we would definitely take a multi-pronged approach to, working with all providers in the area, resourcing them up. So we've got resources for Here to Help You. I don't know if those of you have visited the website, but it's a dual language pathway. So we provide a full te reo experience for people when they hit the website. If they don't want English, we can then link them, as Erina said, with a Māori provider, or people who are Pacifica with the right kind of connector and into those providers. But we also have resources in 12 languages. So we have developed all our material, posters and referral cards that we can work with council around getting some out into those areas in 12 different languages, so that, accessibility, that was what we built this on. And if we're not delivering that, so we make sure that it's really accessible when people get there. So we understand that digital point that you make is while some people don't have access, we've got the free phone number. We work with other providers. We work in partnership with referrers. And we have people in Hamilton, working with other providers who are making sure that the homeless know about Here to Help You. So, we've got all those. I guess they're really great questions that we've also sort of struggled on that journey with over the last year. So hopefully we can bring a lot of value to another conversation on that. And it's all about that kitty of outreach, like all the different tactics that we put in place. And when people hit our website, as Erina said, we've done an accessibility audit. The website is being built so that it's really, really simple to use, so that we hope that there are no barriers. We've got software. I don't know if people have heard of Full Story, but we've got third-party software that we can actually monitor people when they're using the website to see where they're getting stuck. We don't watch them, and it's not like Big Brother is watching you in full time, but we can go back over 1,000 cases and we actually can see where their mouse is sticking. So we're doing all that work all the time. So we try and make the outreach really broad and work in the community. We give the resources. We've got 12 languages, and then we make sure when they hit the tool that everything works well.
Hi, thank you. I'm sorry, I have to go. But really would love to talk to you both more about it. Will be really great. So sorry, Mayor Ellen, for jumping in there.
That's all right. You're a busy lady, so you're more than welcome.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you.
Okay, so look, what I think we probably should do here is and I know this involves working with Kurt and some of the team you've already been working with, But I know the deputy mayor, he's always got a few jobs he has to do for me, and I think he's run out, so I think I might have to allocate another one to him. He's finished the funding, well, nearly finished the funding review and the representation review. So Sam, he brought it to us with great enthusiasm and gusto, and I think everybody's very supportive of it. I'm going to leave it to him to have a political gaze over it and just work with Kirk and the team just to keep it going. If you don't mind, Axel, are you happy to do that?
I'm happy to do it. I don't mind doing it, but it's not because I've run out of work.
Yeah, no, that's all right. No, he's never run out of work, because when I'm far too busy, I pawn it off onto somebody else. So, yeah, look, I just want to thank you both, ladies. And I think, Kirk, have you got anything you want to add to the team working with them? All good?
That's it, yeah, extremely well covered, and the team, Ange and Cal and Nisha, very excited to get behind this and make it happen in our district.
Yeah. So all I'd suggest, ladies, go away, work with our team, keep Axel involved, and just keep going. And when you're ready for a launch or whatever how you want to go about this, just come back to us again, or through Axel, we'll come back through into the political thing, and we'll just do what you need us to do to actually help promote it. Because as I said, I think we're only starting our journey in relation to real pain going forward. So I think this tool will be invaluable going forward over the next 12 months at least. If you think it's been busy now, I think it's going to get a hell of a lot busier, to be honest. Righto, close out. Councillor Church.
Yeah, thank you. It's really it's good that you've got Te Reo. I saw on your website, which is great, and that's going to be helpful up in, I know, in the north of Turkau. But like I found in Pocono, they've got like 46 different ethnicities from the primary school. So it's really, and had some of these ethnicities saying, look, we just need eggs and rice, and then we're okay for the next 3 weeks. Just eggs and rice is what they needed to live on. So the expectations are quite low in terms of food banks, but that's really helpful to know that that's available, because it's those barriers that have been quite difficult in the north to sometimes navigate or to find, I guess, other people that we can interpret through, and that's what we've been doing. So yeah, and I think so that'd be interesting, I think, with that thing where you've got your providers, but also, are you looking for other people who might want to volunteer in terms of maybe other languages, or even really good Te Reo? Is that going to be helpful rather than actual providers of goods? Is it going to be, do you want those sorts of volunteers as well, like those skill sets maybe around language or whatever?
Well, do you want me to start, Erina, on the sort of, yeah, so we've, as I said, we've got this kind of baseline of 12 languages. We would love to add more. So, and that's, we actually got, our Pacifica languages. We've got 5 Pacifica languages covered. They were translated locally. And then we had Tauranga City Council say, we've got someone who can support another 5 languages. And then we've got our Te Reo done in our English, obviously. So that kind of support, working with council through that to get some language, provision, some translation of our resources, that is fantastic. But also the channels into those communities, like if they can just push those doors and nudge them forward and open for us, that is just, you can't place a value on that. So we would love to work with you in that respect.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, like, even though small specific on like Kiribati, Tuvalu, they're small communities, but they're actually like quite hard to get a hold of and stuff. Yep, cool. Thank you. I'll be in touch.
All right. I think we've got a way forward, ladies. So just stay connected with the team and work out how we're going to approach this and how we're going to launch it, and what you need from us and or from me or from any of my councillors. We'll just do what is required for us to do to make this work. So just let us know. And it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you both and have you both here. Enjoy the rest of your day. Not there's a lot of it left, but I've got to admit I've ended up my day in a better conversation than I started my day. I lost 2.5 hours of my life this morning with 67 mares. So yeah, so far better this afternoon than this morning. So look, thank you very much, ladies. Do appreciate it.
Kia ora. Thank you for your time.
No,
Thank
you're
you,
welcome.
everyone. Kia ora.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Kia ora. Okay, thanks everybody. We'll see you all tomorrow at Infrastructure.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks.